Hello and welcome back to the Dugout podcast. This is episode number 63. And today I am joined by my co host, Ethan Barlow, and we're going to be discussing all the league action over the past week or so. Obviously, we had some midweek games, and then we're going to be discussing the European games last week and the European fixtures coming up this week. Obviously, Aberdeen enter the fray in what is a difficult time for them. But first of all, Ethan, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, really exciting in Scottish football now. It's not usual that we get sort of back-to-back weeks of league phase or group stage as it was fixtures, but that's obviously what we've got. Which for Celtic and Rangers, they have the opportunity to get their first win in the Europa League. Aberdeen have the opportunity to get their first, I'll say, major win of the season. They obviously won in the League Cup, but still a real struggle for them. 10 games to talk about as well. So yeah, a lot to talk about today. How's yourself, Alex?
Yeah, mate, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm looking forward to it as well. I'm a bit cheerier this weekend. I'm sure we'll get on to. Well, sorry, we're on Tuesday now, but cheerier after the weekend. I'm sure we'll get on to that later in the show. But yeah, feeling good, ready to talk about the fixtures. So first of all, we'll focus on the league. I think in this first section of the show, and we'll start on Dundee United versus Aberdeen, and then obviously Falkirk versus Hibs. We'll start in the Dundee United game. Ethan, they got a 2-0 victory over Aberdeen, which extended Aberdeen's winless and goalless run, extended even further, and we'll talk about that as well. But yeah, good win for Dundee United, Ethan. But Aberdeen are really, they're so poor right now, aren't they?
Yeah, that one was really one that put Jimmy Tilleen, I think, under a lot of pressure, and I think after the game was the probably the most stressed he's looked in a press conference at Aberdeen. Obviously, he's came under a lot of pressure for the run they've been on, and rightfully so. But that was the first sort of time he looked like he was really at. He doesn't come across as a manager who's um, got his hierarchy breathing down his neck. He does seem quite confident still, but I think he was really annoyed and upset after that defeat at Tannadice, and it wasn't really much in the game. But Dundee United took their 2 goals well. Even Dolchek, again, he's been on fire this season, top goal scorer, and Dundee United obviously trying to secure him on a permanent basis. And then the other goal, brilliant wee flick on at the front post from Vico Save, and then it's was it Bert
Having a good
Esselink that scores?
season. He's having a good season as well, isn't he?
Yeah, and the comparison I wanted to draw between him and a Rangers player actually, and Nicholas Raskin, they're quite small in stature, but they always seem to do their part
Is Vico
from
Save
corners.
centre back?
What is it?
Is Vico Save not a centre back?
No, I don't. Well, he played in defensive midfield last season, but I was more comparing them off the stature point of view. They're
Right.
both not the tallest on the pitch, but they're really good at those front post headers. Terrible defended by Aberdeen, it's got to be said, but good finish by Esselink, and massive win for Dundee United. You expect them to kick on from there, but obviously not. Aberdeen, the
Save's
misery
6 foot.
continues. What is it?
Save's 6 foot.
Is he?
Yeah, so he's not that small.
Yeah, he's not. I thought he was quite small. Maybe it's just because Dundee United have got a big team, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, Nicholas Raskin definitely is small, but yeah, my comparison is obviously inaccurate.
Yeah,
But no, Seve
Raskin,
played defensive
Raskin's
midfield
five
last
foot
season.
ten. Raskin's 5'10".
All right, well, not much in it, but I think Vico Seve's been playing in defence this season. You're definitely right on that. Last season he was defensive midfield, so but yeah, just a funny comparison I thought of. Anyway,
Yeah. Just on that game as well. After it, and prior to the Motherwell game at the weekend, I was writing an article for our university UWS newsroom. Go check it out. We plug for the uni there. But yeah, and I was interviewing Glenn Schroeder from Red Tinted Glasses. We did a preview with him at the start of the season, and I was asking him if he thinks how long he thinks Jimmy Tilleen had left, and he thought he would at least get until the next international break to try and turn things round. But since that interview, it's got worse and worse for Aberdeen, and I'm not sure what the stat is now, but prior to the Motherwell game, it was their worst start to the league in 26 years. Probably even worse now, Ethan. What what do you think's going on? Because it's funny because when I've watched the highlights of the Aberdeen games, they have chances and they actually don't look terrible, but they just can't seem to find the net.
Yeah, exactly that. They just lack that clinical edge. It just seems like it's just not really falling for them, and when luck's not on your side in football and in life in general, sometimes it's just not on your side, and that seems to be the case for Aberdeen. It does seem like sort of one goal, one win, and it'll maybe click into place for them because I don't think they've been that bad to not score a goal across 6 games. And I agree. I think Jimmy Tilleen will get until the international break. I don't see him being sacked before the Dundee game at the weekend, and I think that would be if he can't pick up 3 points there. I think that would be a perfect place for Aberdeen to maybe part ways with him because to go into an international break, you're playing against I think many people seen on paper the worst team in the league going into the season. I know it's not panned out that way for Dundee, but they are down still they're down the bottom end and with a squad, Aberdeen have got a really good squad as well. So it is strange to think why it's not working and why it's been so terrible. But you feel that maybe just it takes that one result and it'll click into place. And that hopefully, from a Scottish point of view, that result will come on Thursday night. Although I really can't see it.
Nah, me neither. So we'll move on to the other Tuesday night game. Hibs went to the Falkirk Stadium in Falkirk to play Falkirk, and they drew 2 each after going 2-0 in front. Hibs have shown this season they're perhaps a bit susceptible to conceding multiple goals, even if they are on the score sheet themselves. Their 3 each draw to Dundee United comes to mind. Obviously, that was last week or the week before. The week before, because last week was the cup.
Oh yes, yeah.
So Ethan, not we all had high hopes for Hibs this season, I think, but they've not managed to hit the ground running.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think the fans would have wanted a bit more. They've not lost in the league yet, but they've also drawn a lot of matches. They're still in the top 6, so but they're still quite far away from their rivals and Celtic at the top, and they would want to be a bit closer. Obviously, it's not the case, but they've got a massive opportunity the weekend to really close the gap on Hearts and what will be a really entertaining, hopefully, Edinburgh derby. And they got a really good result at Celtic Park on Saturday, which we'll get onto. So yeah, I think this game had a few talking points. A really harsh handball given against Falkirk for the opening goal for Hibs. Ethan Williams, it was against. The ball hits off his hand from about a yard away. I think it is really harsh. Martin Boyle scores the penalty, fair enough, and then Jamie McGrath scores a really nice goal. Sort of on the swivel, fakes to go one way and then goes the other and finishes. And Hibs look on the easy street at that point, and then Falkirk come back into the game. The Man United loanee Williams came back with a vengeance, it seemed, because he set up both of the Falkirk goals. Terrible defending from Hibs. Rocky Bashiri should have been covering the front post a bit better. Have you seen the Charlie Mulgrew clip on Premier Sports? And Ross McIver put it in. And then a brilliant cross from the corner and a brilliant header from Liam Henderson, right in the corner from some distance as well. And I think he was saying before the game he's a Hibs fan, so a brilliant moment for him and a decent result for Falkirk. They've started the season okay, not the worst for a newly promoted team, but they'll need to start picking up wins rather than draws and defeats.
Yeah, good to see though from Henderson actually celebrating a goal though instead of Liam Donnelly last season against Celtic. Do you remember that, Ethan, when he did the apology celebration in that 3 draw off at Dens? He
Oh, what? No, what's his name?
not Liam Donnelly, someone Donnelly.
Yeah, I know who you're on about. I know who you're on about. That's bad that I'm forgetting his name. Um, let me see. I'll just go to. I'm pretty sure he's still at Dundee. His
Ian
name's just
Donnelly, though.
escaping. Um,
Uh, Dundee. This is great podcasting. Um,
yeah, I,
Aaron Donnelly. Aaron.
yes, that's the one on the bench at the weekend. That's the one. Yes, I do remember that. I think that what was it? We never really found the full extent of why he didn't celebrate.
Well,
People
well,
were
well, they asked
supposing that.
him. They asked him, and he said, "Oh, I was just kind of shocked, and that's why I did that, or whatever, or something
I
like
think, yeah, some people were saying that. Some people were saying that was a terrible excuse. Some people were saying he was a Celtic fan. Some people were saying he was doing it because Luke McCowan scored the opening goal, and I think he might have done it. Obviously, former Dundee player. But yeah, that was a strange one. But no, no, good to see Henderson fully celebrating in front of that really good Falkirk crowd that they've built up to start the season.
Yeah, yeah, and it's although Falkirk's still, not doing so well, down in 11th. Every point's important when you're a newly promoted team fighting for survival.
Yeah, exactly that. And it was never going to be sort of they come into the league and start winning games on a weekly basis. It's always going to be difficult for really promoted teams for the most part, although we've seen really big successes from the newbies in the Premiership in recent years. But I think with the way John McGlynn plays, the players, a lot of them coming all the way up from League One and the Championship, are going to need to settle in to the Premiership and find their feet. But definitely not the worst start. They've got teams like Livingston and even Dundee that are really close to them, and then they've obviously got Aberdeen, who I think we all expect to turn that around eventually, but quite a bit below them to start the campaign.
Yeah, yeah. I've just clocked something. I did a really poor bit of research. Seen my article that I spoke about earlier and the video I made on the TikTok. I said Aberdeen had lost every single league game. I've just clocked that they obviously drew against Livingston. So I'll need to go on to the website and change that. But yeah, top tier journalism from me, not even looking at the league table properly. But anyway,
Well, I think in fairness to you, they'd be as well losing every game. I don't think it would make a great difference to anybody's thoughts, and they've not scored a goal either. So yeah, it's really not been a great start for them.
okay. We'll move on to the weekend's fixtures now, and I think we'll focus on the two teams we were kind of spoke about in depth there, and their weekend games. Will start on Hibs. Went away to Celtic Park and managed to get a 0-0 draw. Ethan, what did you make of this one? What was Celtic's performance like? What was your views on it?
I actually thought it was one of Celtic's best performances of the season. It was just one of those games where 9 times out of 10 probably Celtic get a goal and win the match, but they just couldn't find the back of the net. Credit to Hibs, they made it difficult. Celtic still had chances, but Hibs didn't really threaten at all. They had one massive chance. The centre back. His name is escaping me. Ahora hit it off the over the bar when it looked easy to score. But apart from that, Kasper Schmeichel was a spectator really, and Celtic dominated and played some of their best football, especially in the first half. Kelechi Iheanacho really should have scored at least once. He did put the ball in the net, rightfully ruled offside. But yeah, it just wasn't Celtic's day. But I think the Celtic fans were disappointed with the result, but not worried for the most part. I think it's one of those ones where you would be more worried if they weren't creating the chances. But because we've seen that in a number of games with Celtic this season, Kairat Amati especially, a lot of draws for Celtic though, which is um, worrying a few Celtic fans. But I think I'm seeing steady progress from Celtic from game to game, and I think if it was in any other season or any other vein of form, this is a kind of game where you can't win every game, but obviously it comes with a pretty slow start to Celtic's season. They've scored less than half of the goals they'd scored by this point last season. So shows that they have been struggling in forward areas, but I think Celtic are on the right path, and I don't think anyone is worrying too much, despite the fact that Hearts obviously take advantage and go to the top of the league.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just looking at the statistics there. You're speaking about chance creation and stuff. Celtic had 26 shots, 2.8 expected goals. So yeah, really not. It isn't a case of questioning the sort of chance creation, and also as well on FotMob, Raphael Salinger got the Man of the Match award. So I think that tells you everything you need to know about the game and about the Hibs goalkeeper's performance and about how, as you said, Ethan, it was just one of those days for Celtic.
Yeah, and I don't remember Salinger making any great saves. Maybe I'm mistaken, but obviously to keep a clean sheet at Celtic Park, your goalkeeper's got to be on form. He's came in recently for Jordan Smith. He seems to have taken that number one spot. But no, it was a good setup by David Gray. Credit to him because, as we mentioned before, they've defensively been quite shocking this season. The performance at Ibrox wasn't very good in the cup. So it would have been a lot of people would have had Celtic as favourites. Celtic, as I said, probably should have won the match, but still credit to Hibs. They come and make it difficult and get a very well deserved point. A few notable changes from Brendan Rodgers' team, which were interesting. That Daizen Maeda went to the right wing. Obviously not his favoured position, but I think it worked the best on a performance basis for Celtic. He switched the midfielders. Luke McKibben looked positive. Arne Engels, the game sort of passed them by a little bit, still not really knocking on the door to break into that starting 11. And then he brings Anthony Ralston back in at right back, who had a decent game, called up to the Scotland team again today. We'll obviously cover that in a different episode. Kobe Donovan, I think, just rested. He's played a lot of games, and for the intensity they'll be playing at, he won't be used to. Kieran Tierney rested as well. Marcelo Sarachi came in, and I thought he was one of Celtic's best players. He looked really, really good, really comfortable on the ball. That sort of inverted fullback that maybe Celtic missing, Greg Taylor, Marcelo Sarachi looks like that. So not worrying for Celtic, but disappointing. Obviously, they can't pick up the 3 points, but Hibs have obviously helped their great rivals to the top of the league, and long may it continue because we want a team outside of Celtic and Rangers to really pose a threat in the league. We thought we had it last season, and hopefully we do this season with Hearts.
Yeah, I think this season as well, it feels a bit more real, because Celtic aren't firing, like you mentioned, Ethan, they've
Yeah.
scored less than half of what they did at this point last season. They're not firing the way we usually see them. Whereas Aberdeen last season were winning every game and keeping up with Celtic, and they got the 2-2 draw at Parkhead and that. But you could still see Celtic were leagues above in terms of quality. This season, though, it is a little bit different, I think, because Hearts do look really, really good, and we'll talk about them more in depth. But I just wanted to talk about the Motherwell Aberdeen game. Draws versus losses derby, and obviously Aberdeen, as we alluded to, their goalless and winless run continues, losing 2-0 to Motherwell at Fir Park, a 92nd and 97th minute goals, putting them to the sword, and yeah, not great again for Jimmy Tilleen.
No, not at all. And I think he'll be kicking himself. Well, not kicking himself, kicking his players. Well, of course he won't, but
Oh
he'll be
no,
annoyed.
you can't be abusing your players like that.
No, no, I know. I just
The
return a
management is
phrase.
that
Return
unorthodox.
a phrase. But no, he'll be really. I don't think he can put too much, and I don't think the Aberdeen fans are putting too much scrutiny on Dimitar Mitov. Obviously, it's a big error for the first goal. There's no getting away from that. He should save it. It's a one that, as the saying goes, he should be able to throw his cap on. But
That
um,
that could have potentially cost them a point though.
no, it could have done. But I think the general consensus from Aberdeen fans is that Dimitar Mitov has made things over the last, to start the season, he's made things a lot better than what they could be. he made a lot of, and he's been one of the few players that maybe gets past marks this season. So I think Aberdeen fans are willing to accept that. Of course, they're frustrated with their goalkeeper. He should save it. Johnny Katrumbas' shot really shouldn't cause any problems for him, but it does, and ultimately that's what takes the game away from Aberdeen. And then they're throwing everything at it to get an equaliser late on, and Motherwell get that penalty. Apostolos Stamatolopoulos steps up, scores a goal that he very much needed because he's missed a lot of chances this season. And I've seen a stat earlier actually that I'm going to look for again. Yeah, expected goals for per player in the Scottish Premiership. Apostolos Stamatolopoulos, 3.9 expected goals. And that's obviously his first goal of the season. So, yeah, that was a long time coming for him. Missed a lot of chances this season, but Motherwell fans will be hoping that he can get a run of games and a run of goals as well, because that's what Motherwell have been needing. They're just performances have been there throughout the season, as we know. They just needed the goals. They obviously got the win at Pittodrie last week with the Regan Charles Cook stunner. Then they get the win here. So Motherwell are in a really good place under James Bethelascu, and I'm really looking forward to them heading to Celtic Park next week because it'll be really interesting to see. I think we know what Motherwell are going to do. We've seen what they're going to do this season, but I think it is a very different scenario when you go to Celtic Park, despite Celtic not being at hitting the heights they did last season. Early on in the season, they're still obviously a team that can hurt you if you make mistakes around the back and stuff like that. But for Aberdeen, following on from the midweek game, just the same old. I just don't know how Aberdeen are playing so badly. It is so hard to put a finger on because Jimmy Tilleen's shown that he's a good manager and they've got a really good squad there. It is strange. And I'm looking at the stats for expected goals, and I know Martin O'Neill hates this stat as he came out and said. I quite like it. I think it's a decent stat. It's not the be all and end all. It doesn't mean everything, but it gives you a
You're a wee stat merchant, to be fair. You love your
yeah. No, I do love my stats. I do love my stats. Gives you a good. I mean, over the course of a season, it should average out to the expected goals. So it gives you a good sort of ratio of where a team's sitting. Aberdeen have
That's
created
the one.
6.5 expected goals this season and scored none. St Mirren and Dundee have created less and they've scored 5 and 6. So it's just not going Aberdeen's way at the moment. I think it will turn around. I do see them actually beating Dundee at the weekend and then coming out the other side of that international break with confidence.
If for me personally, well, I think it should. Right, never mind. What was I going to say there? No, for me personally, it should be the end. But I'll pose the question to you. After if Aberdeen lose to Dundee United, not Dundee United, oh God, commit the cardinal sin. If Aberdeen lose to Dundee at the next weekend, after possibly losing to Shakhtar Donetsk as well, do you think that should be the end of Jimmy Tilleen's time at Pittodrie?
Yeah, I think it is, and I think that's what a lot of Aberdeen fans they're willing to give Jimmy Tilley's time. Obviously, gave them one of the greatest moments in the modern day club's history with that Scottish Cup win. But the run in the league has just not been good enough. I think it's 5 or 6 maybe league wins in 2025, which is just a ridiculous start really for a club like Aberdeen. And to think how good they were to start last season, obviously couple that with the Scottish Cup win. That's why Jimmy Tilleen's getting the respect and the hope from Aberdeen fans that he is still the man to turn it around. Very much his squad. He's been backed immensely. He has undeniably a top 5 squad in the league, and he should be doing a lot better. And if he was to lose to Dundee, who are on paper the worst squad in the league, or were certainly to start the season, then before an international break, I don't think there is any way back for him, and I think he would be relieved of his duties at that point. But I do think it's just a matter of time for Aberdeen. I think the results, not blowing teams away. I'm not saying that Aberdeen are going to make a run at top 3 or whatever. I think the opportunity for that might already be gone because you imagine Rangers are going to start picking up points at a better rate. Hearts are already miles clear of Aberdeen, so but European spot, top six, is where Aberdeen should be at the very least. I think they can still definitely aim for that because the league is still very tight and we are still very early on in the season. So yeah, I think Dundee is make or break for Jimmy Tilleen if he doesn't get a result against Shakhtar Donetsk, which, as I mentioned, as we'll get on to, I don't see as very likely.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So we'll move on to now the league leaders, Hearts beating Falkirk 3-0 at Tynecastle. Lawrence Shanklin looks like he's up and running again. A lot of people questioning whether he maybe should have been included in Steve Clarke's Scotland squad, obviously released today as we're recording this. We'll do something for that, if not on the YouTube channel, on the Twitter, the TikTok, or something, because we have to. But anyway, but yeah, Lawrence Shanklin getting on the score sheet, a man that, along with Ivan Dolcek as well, who's catching the eyes of supporters, is Alexandros Kesridis. He's been in terrific form recently, another goal and an assist for the winger this weekend. And then Craig Halkett getting on the score sheet as well, quite unusual for him. But the veteran was called in, and he managed to put it away for 3-0. And Ethan, it's a really, really big win for Hearts and for them to go top of the league. And if they can maintain that position going into the next international break, that would be huge.
Yeah, and even if Celtic can manage to get a late goal at Celtic Park against Hibs, Hearts still would have been top on goal difference just by the amount of goals they've scored. Really, the by far the best attack in the league so far this season. 15 goals, four more than any other team. Defensively, they're sitting in the upper echelon as well. And I think the thing we said about Hearts in the opening few games was that they were getting the job done. At Livingston comes to mind because Reedus comes on at half time, sets up the first, scores the last minute goal. Same at Tannadice. Aberdeen was obviously different. Motherwell, they got lucky to get back into that game as well. But the last two performances at Ibrox and at home to Falkirk have been really solid wins, and that's always good to get because, as we said, I think Aberdeen for the majority of last season they were getting those one goal late wins, and they're obviously great. Shows that the team's got a great mentality to fight until the end and get those results. It's a very good habit to have, but I don't think you can win the league or even come close doing that across the course of the season. And a point you mentioned earlier, which I think is a massive one, is that Aberdeen were never, I don't think, top at any point last season. Certainly weren't on points. They might have been on goal difference at the very, very early stages, but Celtic were top of the league through the whole course of the season because they were scoring more goals, they were winning by more than Aberdeen were, even when Aberdeen did have their drop off. Whereas Hearts have went to the top of the league now on points, so shows that maybe I know Celtic are a weaker team, but it shows maybe that Hearts are going to be there for a proper challenge, and hopefully they are because it would be really entertaining to see. And they've got a really really good squad there, loads of players in numerous positions, great versatility across the squad. And some of their signings have been excellent. I mean, Alexandros Kasridis, that goal was ridiculous. Brilliant goal to get away from the two defenders, Keelan Adams and Brad Spencer, and then it's a ridiculous finish. Just curls it into the top corner, and Scott Bain has absolutely no chance for that, does he?
No, no, he doesn't. And yeah, I knew Scott Bain was a bad keeper all along. But yeah, no, Hearts have been absolutely tremendous, and I feel like as well in recent weeks, the past two league games in particular, they've really stepped it up as well. Obviously, that one at Ibrox, so Rangers aren't great, but still, right now, even I don't know if I'm clinging on for any shred of hope, but Ethan, but I think even any state Rangers are in, it's a difficult game to play.
No, exactly that. At the end of the day, no matter where Rangers lie and how they're playing, they've still got the second, at the very least, the second best squad in the league. I think everyone would agree on that. Hearts have obviously recruited really well, went into those unknown markets like Tony Bloom's done at Union St. Gilloise, had so much success. Alexandros Kazridis picked out the Slovakian league. So there is these players that if you can scout properly, then you can do it. Obviously, I think it is still going to be very difficult. I still fancy Celtic to go and to win the league, but there's no reason why Hearts can't stay up there and put the pressure on and stay in that position because, in all honesty, if Hearts and Celtic were to play at Tynecastle at the weekend, my money would obviously gamble responsibly, but I think my money would maybe be on the Jambos, and that says to how well they've done under Derek McInnes this season, and a really good finish from Lon Shankland as well. And I think it shows the confidence that he has early in this season that he's taking that strike from the edge of the box and a really good finish as well.
All right, so moving on to the next game on Saturday, Dundee United hosted Kilmarnock at Tannadice, but they could not replicate their midweek fixture. Well, they did in a way, but it was reversed. Kilmarnock with a big 2-0 victory in Dundee. Ethan, what did you make of this game and how massive is this for Kilmarnock? Obviously, Bruce Anderson and Robbie Dees getting on the score sheet.
Yeah, I really didn't see this one coming, to be honest. I thought Dundee United would win as the home team on good form, but obviously not. They had more shots. Well, what to be fair, they had one more shot. They had the same shots on target. They had more possession, but Killie, a massive, massive win. Their first in the Premiership this season.
Yeah.
Yes, first in the Premiership this season. A massive.
Sorry, I've got here though. Max Striek got man of the match,
Yeah,
right? And Dundee United had 2.21 expected goals. Striek prevented 2.15.
yeah. He had a ridiculous game, 9.3 rating for a goalkeeper, so that probably shows how well he played off the back of a little bit questionable for Mikael Mandron's goal at Rugby Park last week in the Cup, for being a little bit harsh. But yeah, massive scalp for Stuart Kettlewell, his first win in the Premiership, and I think the Kilmarnock fans are warming to the idea of him being the manager. They're obviously just outside the top six where they want to be in the top six competing, and I think these are two teams that will be in the conversation come the end of the season. Dundee United obviously in their last season, Kilmarnock in there the season before. But I really didn't see this one coming. But credit to Kilmarnock, they took their two goals really well. It was a really nice finish by Bruce Anderson. And then speaking about it last week about Robbie Dees only scoring one goal per season, then he scores goals in back-to-back weeks. Maybe I was mentioning that stat was a good luck charm for him, a good header, and obviously a brilliant result for brilliant away day for Killie, and Laurie Finlayson was at the match, so he was enjoying himself at Tannadice.
Yeah. Now they're up into seventh ahead of Rangers on goal difference. What a sentence that is. And they are only 2 points away from third place St Mirren. It's getting really tight in that. Even from like ninth up to third, there's only 3 points in it. So it's really tight in there, and it's getting super competitive.
Yeah, and it is, and that's what we like to see. We like to see, and there's a whole host of teams and around that area will want to have themselves in the top six come the end of the season. St Mirren, Motherwell, Dundee United, Hibs, Kilmarnock, Rangers will want to be in the top six as well. So yeah, obviously a massive sort of battle in there, and that's what we like to see. I do think Dundee, Livingston, and Falkirk maybe a step too far for them. And obviously you've got Aberdeen. As I mentioned, I still expect Aberdeen to find a way up the table. I didn't actually notice.
Last season disastrously, so
yeah, exactly that. And maybe it's going to be the same story for Aberdeen. They'll flip their season around this time and go on the ridiculous run to end the season rather than begin it. I didn't notice actually in this game at Tannadice that Dundee United had a penalty. I seen the goals, but I didn't know that Striek actually gave away the penalty and then saved it. Zach Sapsworth's penalty, so that might be why his rating was so high. On top of the 7 saves, I believe he made. So, brilliant performance from him. Brilliant performance from Kilmarnock. David Watson looked to be a standout again. He looks to be really flourishing again this season. He had last season under Derek McInnes, where a lot of Kilmarnock fans felt he wasn't being deployed properly and stuff like that. But he was certainly excellent against Celtic a couple of weeks ago, and it seemed to be the same story on Saturday. So yeah, a brilliant result for Kilmarnock. Dundee United will need to pick themselves up, but they're still in a really good position as well, obviously in fifth. And there's so little in the league, as we mentioned, between third place St Mirren and ninth place Dundee. It's only 3 points, so yeah, really tight. Apart from Hearts, Celtic, and Aberdeen, who are the outliers at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I don't really have much else to comment on this game, unless you've got anything else, Ethan.
No, nothing too much. Just really, as I mentioned, not trying to disrespect Kilmarnock because I think they have looked decent this season, but I really didn't see this one coming. I don't imagine too many Kilmarnock fans did either. But a great day out in on Tannadice Street for them,
Yeah,
and they'll be hoping to carry that into the weekend's game where they face St Mirren at home and have the chance to get revenge after their cup disappointment last week.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Moving on to the aforementioned third place, St Mirren. They hosted Dundee at St Mirren Park in Paisley, where they got the 1-0 victory. A nice finish from Killie Phillips. Michael Mandron credited with the assist, although I'm not 100% sure whether it was a brilliant no look pass or a slightly skewed shot. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And yeah, like I said, St Mirren up into third, and our mate Ryan Niven, host of Pitch and Patter, is loving it.
Yeah, they're looking really solid, and that's the thing with St Mirren. They're known under Stephen Robinson for their slow starts to the season. Obviously, being in Europe, a couple of them, so that hasn't helped them. But usually, they're a strong finish. I remember last season when they made the top six, I completely counted them out for making the European places at all. If you remember, they were, what was it, 9 points or something adrift of fifth. And then by the last game, they were just a couple points and needed a few results to go their way to get into Europe. Obviously, they didn't. But if they end the season well this campaign and they couple that with the way they've started, then they might stay in third because the signings that have come in have been really solid as well. We talk and give so much praise to Stephen Robinson for him and his team's recruitment, and Killian Phillips obviously was there last season, but now signed on a permanent. He looks to be playing even better than he was last season. Arguably, is one of the player of the seasons, you would have to say, and I think he's the standout player. 5 goals already this season, more than last season, and yeah, I think Mikael Mandron gets credited with the assist, but that's definitely a shot on goal that Phillips has
Oh,
improvised with very well.
it was a brilliant pass. Brilliant pass. He spotted him out from behind the back of his ear, and he just played it into that danger area. No, but yeah, we do speak about Stephen Robinson and how well he's done and his recruitment, and yeah, and Killian Phillips as well, like you said, Ethan. Last season, I felt like, you know how there's players you think that are on, you can see they're good, but they're on the verge of something, if you know what I mean. I feel like he's taken that step this season and he's become one of the main men, and
Yeah,
that's starting 11.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think he was last season. He was a little bit underrated. I'm sure St Mirren fans know how good he was, but across the league, maybe because he wasn't getting the goals, he doesn't get the headlines. But he was someone that always, when I seen St Mirren play, was a standout. And this season, obviously, he's getting the goals, a real attacking instinct as well for that goal. He finds himself in a great position. It's a really good finish from him. There wasn't much in the game, in all fairness, between the two teams, but that's it with St Mirren. They grind out results. It's not always the prettiest, and I think a few St Mirren fans have took offence to people like Chris Sutton's comments, but I think it's almost a backhanded compliment.
What did Chris Sutton say?
He said something along the lines of St Mirren aren't, they're not like the prettiest team to watch or whatever, but they're a really good team at getting the results. Don't think it's not exactly what he said, but it was along those lines. And I think that's what St Mirren are. There's no point lying about it and saying they're a beautiful team to watch, one of the best in the league, but they're a really solid team that make it really nasty for you,
Yeah,
and
but
they're a really
don't get me wrong. They can play football, but
oh they can
that's not like their fun. I think what we're trying to say for any St Mirren fans who are currently getting mad at us now,
yeah
that's not the fundamentals of their game. Like you were just saying, Ethan, they make it difficult, they make it nasty. They can produce nice football, some nice quality, but they're just. I've used this word a lot to describe them. They're just solid. You know,
yeah
they're solid, and I think they could give anyone a decent game. I think they were unfortunate, and even on the opening day of the season, you could maybe say to not get anything from the Celtic game. They maybe didn't offer much on the attack in front, had a couple of opportunities, but you know they made it difficult for Celtic, and in the end they couldn't get anything from the game, but they've continued that throughout the season, just making it difficult for teams. And yeah, and now they're up in third.
yeah. And at the end of the day, I think Motherwell are the team that are getting probably the most sort of praise that maybe you wouldn't have expected them to get this season for the way they're playing. But at the end of the day, it's a results business. Doesn't matter how you play. St Mirren play to their strengths. They play to what Stephen Robinson knows, and it's worked very well. So why is he going to change and play some other style?
Yeah,
They're a team that no team in that Scottish Premiership want to come up against. They've obviously got the chance to to make some history going to a League Cup as well, which well, it's a great opportunity to go to Hampden as well because they haven't been there as supporters for over a decade, I believe. So yeah, everything's looking so good for St Mirren at the minute. They lead that pack, and Stephen Robinson and his players and the St Mirren supporters will be hoping they stay there, and as long as they can keep grinding out the results, like they've started doing, because obviously they went through that patch of not having a league win under their belt, but now they've got 3 wins on the bounce. Is that now? No. Well, yeah, 3 wins on the bounce. Yeah, Falkirk in the league, then Killie on penalties in the cup, and then Dundee at home. For Stephen Presley and Dundee, they're doing better than I expected them to do by this point. Not the worst point tally, they're in amongst it with Livingston and Falkirk, obviously quite a bit ahead of Aberdeen. So yeah, they're not doing too badly. Dundee, I still expect them to be um, down in the bottom ends of the Premiership. But Stephen Presley's not doing the worst job. Do you think that would be fair to say?
yeah, yeah. I'd 100% say that. He's not. They're not blowing anyone away, but I'd say they're a lesser version of solid. If you know what I'm trying to say, they've been fine.
Yeah,
They've outdone a lot of people's expectations for them. This season, if you asked me at the start, if you showed me the league table at the start of the season, first of all, I would have said Rangers up top, where Hearts are. But if you showed me the league table where the teams, I would in Aberdeen's position, I would have said that's probably Dundee. But they're not. They've got 6 points. They're still down there, near enough. But like we said, it's super tight and anything can happen. And yeah, they've been fine, Ethan. I don't think, and like I said, they've outdone expectations.
yeah, exactly that. And credit to Stephen Presley because he obviously come under a lot of criticism and jokes from us included. So yeah,
Yeah,
well done to him and his recruitment team. They've brought in a few decent players as well, but still a long season, and they'll still have to put in a right good shift to stay in this league.
yeah, absolutely. Moving on to one of the newly promoted sides in West Lothian, going from Paisley to West Lothian. Livingston hosted Rangers on the Sunday, 3 o'clock kickoff, and Rangers finally got their first league win of the season. Thank everything that is good in the world. Uh, it wasn't easy though. It was a 94th minute winner from Max Aarons, the much maligned Max Aarons from the Rangers support. But he certainly enjoyed that one. And yeah, but in terms of the game, I think Rangers in the first half were pretty good. They could have been 3-4 nil in front. There was a big chance for Bojan Miovski. Obviously, James Tavernier gets his goal. Gassama's cross goes to the back post. Oliver Atman sends it back, and it's a nice finish from James Tavernier. Rangers then get a penalty that is saved really well by Jerome Prior, who keeps impressing me every single week. I felt like you know how a few years ago, Ethan, in the league where we had a few goalies where you thought they were maybe too good for the team they were at, and if Rangers and Celtic were looking for a goalie, maybe they would go for them. Or teams in like the League One or the Championship would snap them up. I felt like we haven't had that for a wee while, and maybe except with the exception of Dimitar Mitov, obviously without his horror mistake at the weekend there. But I feel like Jerome Prior's one this season that is he's in the mould of those goalies, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. He made a ridiculous save at Celtic Park, and he has been really solid so far this season. I think Livingston fans were actually surprised that they managed to get him to sign a new contract in the summer, but obviously a great recruit from David Martindale to get him in again, and he's been really solid and helped Livingston along the way. That penalty save nearly inspired a comeback from them.
Yeah.
But as you said, Rangers probably should have been out of sight in the first half. They had that Cornelius goal as well,
Yeah.
which is I think he's had two goals ruled out now. One of them probably not right. That one, obviously, as we found on Flag Day, the opening season, if it hits your hand and you're the goal scorer, then it gets disallowed. That's the rule. You can't really argue with that. But yeah, then Livingston do find a way back into the game. Strange stat I found. That's Mo Salah's first goal in Scottish football. Apparently, I can't believe that that's right.
Really?
But yeah, it says
He
on football. But
scores for Dundee.
he's played over 75 games in Scottish football. But that was his first goal. Apparently, I'm not 100% nailing down that stat because I don't really believe it. But
Can I
uh,
just, before we brush over this goal, can I just nitpick? Uh,
yes,
Gassama out there in a 2-on-1 situation from the throw in is absolutely nuts. Why is no one helping him? Sort of blocked the cross coming in. It was a great header from Mo Salah, although nice movement from him. Although he's afforded way too much space, in my opinion, to put that away. Really good finish. Don't take anything away from that. Really nice cross as well. But the defending, I thought, was especially poor leading up to this goal.
yeah, it was, and that's what we've seen from Rangers this season, and it looked maybe, and that's the thing, we have seen improvements over the last two domestic performances. The Hibs performance was better. The Livingston first half performance was good, and on another day, Rangers should have been out of sight. The second half wasn't as good. Rangers were, I don't know, kind of took their eye off the ball, you could say a little bit, let Livingston back into it. And then Livingston obviously get the goal, and then Russell Martin's under immense pressure because I'll say I've wrote him off for the last two domestic games because I thought Hibs would go to Ibrox and beat Rangers like many people did, and he would lose his job after that. Obviously, past that challenge with flying colours, I did think that if he didn't pick up a win at Livingston on Sunday, then he would also lose his job. And obviously, he does in dramatic fashion with that late Max Aaron's goal. So yeah, I think he's got a lot of time now at Rangers. I think he's bought himself a lot of time with those results. And I think what we said is that the Rangers fans need to see improvements, they need to see progress. And although it's little improvements, little progress, is still steps in the right direction. And I'm not saying that the general consensus amongst Rangers fans is going to have changed. I think the vast majority of them still don't think Russell Martin's the right man for the job, and understandably so with how they've started the season. But all we can do is get the right results, win the bread and butter games in the league, rack up the points, and I mean, in a few weeks we could be looking at Rangers in third, and then if Hearts and Celtic drop points and Rangers keep winning, I know it's a big if with how Rangers are playing, how Hearts especially have played this season. But it's so very early in the season that I still don't think there's going to be a way back for Rangers in the league, personally. But there is still possibly a scenario where Russell Martin turns around his Rangers fate. Although I'll be honest, I don't see it happening. I don't see him. I'm not wishing his downfall. I hope he proves me wrong, but I really don't see him having a successful future at Rangers.
No, I'd agree with that. I don't see him having a successful future at Rangers. And um, the BBC asked him if if Max Aarons had kept him in a job, and he kind of skirted that question a little bit, and then he said, and then he was asked about the unsavoury chance, and he said, "Well, that's why I went right up the tunnel, because it's not about me; it's about the players, and they get to enjoy the win." I'm not sure if that was a tactical way of him going. I just didn't want to hear that. Because who would, human beings at the end of the day. But yeah, Max Aaron's with the winner. Just before that, Jerome Prior made another really good save from Bojan Miovski, tipping it over the bar, and then the corner comes in. The aforementioned flick on, I don't know, the master of getting to the front post, it seems like, from corners, Nico Raskin. Flicks it onto the back post, and it's a wee bit of a scramble, but it's a nice finish from Max Aarons, and you can see what it meant to him and the players, finally getting over that hump, and getting the win in the league. So hopefully for Rangers' sake, Russell Martin's sake, the fans' own mental kind of state, they can build on that. They go away to the Falkirk Stadium next week to play Falkirk, and hopefully another newly promoted side, and that will be a tough game as well. Obviously, they've got Sturm Graz this week, and we'll get on. I think we'll just get on to that now. But yeah, Rangers.
Sorry, I just had a last couple of points on the game.
Yeah,
Not more on the game, but more on Russell Martin and Max Aarons. Obviously, you understand Russell Martin not going out after the game because they won at Livingston, it's not going to change the narrative all that much. And yeah, I think he got a sort of not a nice reception even going into the ground. So it's obviously going to be difficult for him, but all he can do is get the results, as I said. And for Max Aarons, it was a really nice moment for him, and not just relief for the manager, as you've seen on the. And he's technically probably relief for Max Aarons as the player, because he's came under a lot of criticism, as you mentioned, when we went into talking about this game. So that would have been a really nice moment for him, and Rangers can only look upwards now. Obviously, Sturm Graz will be a difficult challenge, as we'll get onto now.
yeah, absolutely. So on Thursday night we have 3 games in the Scottish Premiership. Well, not in the Scottish Premiership, for the Scottish Premiership sides in European action. So we'll start on Rangers going away to Sturm Graz. Sturm Graz lost their first test in the Europa League, like Rangers, a 2-0 defeat to FC Midtjylland, who obviously went toe to toe with Hibs in the Europa League qualifiers. And Sturm Graz obviously used to employ Max Johnston, who has since moved to Derby County. So that's why maybe a few of Scottish fans would. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought again. A few Scottish fans would know them. They currently sit second in the Austrian Bundesliga with a game in hand, though, 2 points behind Rapid Vienna, who went toe to toe with Dundee United in the qualifiers of the Europa Conference League. So, or Europa League, Conference League.
What's this? Dundee United. Yeah, that was Conference League. Yeah.
So maybe that can give you an idea of the quality. Obviously, that's not how football works most of the time. But the top end of the Austrian Bundesliga, sort of going toe to toe with currently mid table in the Scottish Premiership, and also Hibs, who are still around fifth, played Midtjylland, to then a lot of calculations I need to do there, a lot of dots to be drawn, but you get what I'm trying to say. The quality is maybe not like superb, and that can give you an idea of the level of opposition, but it still will be a difficult game to go away to play in Austria.
Yeah, no game in the Europa League is an easy game. All the teams are in there for a reason.
You've
They're
changed
going to
your
be
tune. So
what?
you've changed your tune now. Celtic are in the competition.
No, I still think that the Europa League is it's not where you want to be. You want to be in the Champions League, especially if you were Celtic, with the qualifier they get handed. You want those glamour ties, you want the music, the visuals. You want everything that the Champions League has to offer. But obviously, Celtic need to settle for the Europa League. And I think I mentioned this possibly on one of the previous episodes. I think for the most part, for about 50% of the teams in the Champions League, the most of the teams in the Europa League, it's much of a muchness, the same sort of quality. You obviously don't get the big names, the elites of European football, but you still get tricky tasks. I mean, some Graz were in the Champions League last season, back to back Austrian Bundesliga winners, of course, with Max Johnson, part of both of those successes before making his move to the Championship, as you mentioned. So yeah, Sturm Graz, a bit of a strange one to call because they've started the season in the league pretty decently. Terrible, well not terrible, but a poor result in Denmark against FC Midtjylland, the 2-0 defeat. A terrible result in Norway in their only Champions League qualifier playoff, where they were thrashed 5-0 off Bodo Glimt before winning the consolation match back home 2-1. So it's going to be difficult to predict how well they will be or what sort of place they'll be in. But I think if Rangers play to their strengths and play their best, then they can go over there and get a result. But Rangers haven't done that very often this season, so it is a really difficult game to predict, I think. But it's definitely one Rangers can look at as a winnable game. But I think we say, for the most part in group stage and league phase football, a draw away from home in Europe's never really a bad result. Although Rangers might want to make up from that disappointing start to their campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a disappointing start to the European campaign, obviously hampered by the red card. I didn't think Rangers were bad last week, but I don't think they were good either. A lot of open spaces in the defence again, and that's eventually how O scored on his return to Glasgow. He had a few opportunities throughout the game that he probably should have put away. Obviously, Jack Butland saving a penalty from him as well. But Gent kept cutting Rangers open and on the counter, and eventually one of the attacks was going to be effective, was going to punish Rangers, and it did. And Rangers need to shore up that defence if they want to go away and get the result. But moving on to a team who got a decent away result last week, although their league result maybe not the best. Celtic hosting Braga at Parkhead, 5:45 kickoff. Weirdly enough, because usually Scottish and British teams get the 8 o'clocks, especially if it's at home. But strange one for Thursday night. Are you going to the game, Ethan?
Yes, I'll be there in attendance and possibly observing the 29 minutes as of no singing. It was obviously the 12 minutes of no singing at the weekend's game, so it'll be interesting to see how the 29 minutes affects both sets of players. But yeah, it should be an interesting game. Both teams evenly matched, probably the same as Rangers and Sturm Graz. Not much in it. I know the domestic form certainly for Rangers is obviously different, but I think we know that they're still very capable of showing up on a Thursday night on any given Thursday night. And yeah, I agree. I think Rangers. I didn't get to watch the match, but from what I've seen of the highlights and what I've heard, Rangers just defensively shocking. Again, the they couldn't really have much complaints with any of the decisions. I know three of them went against. They could add a penalty with James Tavernier. I think they got the right decision. Mohamed Diamande was probably a red card, and the Genk penalty, although they didn't score it, was probably a penalty as well. And as you said about it never looked like he was going to score despite having loads of chances. And somebody said the person at Stuttgart who was authorising a 27 million euro move for him needs to be relieved of their duties. But he obviously got his goal in the end, and he loved it as well. But yeah, decent result, decent start for Celtic in Belgrade, because it's not an easy place to go, as we mentioned. Champions League team last season. They did look like they were a team there for the taking, I will say, but Celtic aren't really in the place to be saying teams away from home are there for the taking with Celtic's away European exploits. So Celtic are a lot better in Europe at home, as we've seen last season especially. They'll be favourites to beat Braga, although Braga are a good European team with
Well,
good European
they got the win
pedigree.
last week against Feyenoord, although they did
Yeah,
lose at home to Nacional at the weekend. So, you don't know what Braga you're going to get. Much like right now, you don't know what Celtic you're going to get. So, but Braga, they're familiar with Glasgow, very much the other half, and they will travel there later in the campaign. It should be an entertaining game, but I would back Celtic as well to get the win.
yeah, I agree. I do fancy Celtic. I did say, although Celtic didn't win at the weekend, I'm seeing small steps in the right direction from this Celtic team. Small ones at that, but I think they are getting better from game to game, and I don't think they should be beating a team like Braga at home. Whether they do or not is a different question, but I think they should be. Braga, as you said, a really good result at home to Feyenoord last week. Try to look at some of their key players for both teams, actually, for Sturm Graz and Braga. Sturm Graz, I don't know many. I did obviously know Max Johnson, but outside of that, I'm looking at Braga just now. Obviously, a familiar face in Gustav Lagerbielke, the Swedish, well, I think former Swedish international. And then João Moutinho, the 39-year-old, very experienced midfielder, still playing at his age. And then
Ricardo.
Ricardo Horth, yeah, he's been a sort of mainstay at Braga for a while now. Well, a decade, it looks like. So, yeah, he's one that's been a threat against Rangers in the past, I think. And yeah, it'll be a really interesting game, as all European ties are. But two winnable ties for Celtic and Rangers. It's just whether they can actually do the business, because obviously they've not done for the most part this season.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The other European game of the week is Aberdeen playing Shakhtar Donetsk in the UEFA Europa Conference League, and I think we've alluded to it earlier. I don't think we need to dive too much into this. Ethan, Aberdeen have been absolutely shocking recently. It is at home, but Shakhtar in recent years have been a Champions League team. Not this year, obviously, but I I don't see it going any other way than maybe even a thumping, unfortunately.
Quite possibly with how Aberdeen have been playing, because as you said, Shakhtar Donetsk, a Champions League team, really, you would say. Last season in the Ukrainian league, done really poorly by their standards. Didn't only not win the league with Dynamo Kiev lifting the trophy, they actually came third, which meant they went into Europa League qualification, and I think had possibly the toughest route to qualifying for a league phase ever. They played Ilves and thrashed them 6-0, not very tricky. Then they played Besiktas and won 6-2 on aggregate. Then they went out of Europa League qualification to Panathinaikos on penalties. So obviously Rangers played. And the
Wait, how bad are Panathinaikos now that we've seen how Rangers have turned out?
Yeah, I know. And then they played another team that Rangers played in Champions League qualifying. I think it was a few years
Yeah.
ago, Servette, and they beat them to just to get into the Conference League. So, yeah, it's a tall order for Aberdeen, even at home. Shakhtar leading the Ukrainian league. They've turned over players. They sold Kevin, the Brazilian. Obviously, they've got a massive Brazilian influence in their recruitment. They sold him to Fulham for quite a lot of money. They've sold Georgi Sudakov. I think it's an initial loan to Benfica, but he will be going for around £50 million. So shows the sort of turnover we're talking about here with Shakhtar Donetsk. They've also brought in a couple of
Well,
young Brazilians for
years ago they sold Mikhailo Mudryk for like 100 million as well.
yeah, exactly that. So and they
Ukrainian
brought in a couple Brazilian players for 10 million plus. What were you saying? Sorry.
now Ukrainian Olympic sprinter.
Yeah, yeah. Looks like it, or attempting to be anyway. After his obvious suspension for um, performance enhancing drugs. So yeah, a real tall order for Aberdeen, as I've said. But these are sometimes the things that can spark a team into life. You just
Yeah,
don't expect anything. Then they get a wee draw, they hold out for a nothing each or something like that, and then all the fans are going, well, "This is an excellent result." Because think about it, last season, no one's seen Aberdeen going to Hampden and doing anything to Celtic, but obviously Jimmy Tilleen put on a masterclass. I
yeah, but
think I said
that
it was
result hasn't seemed to have done anything for them anyway. So, uh,
no, it hasn't. But I didn't see that coming, and I think I said that it was the managerial performance of the season in any single game from a Scottish Premiership manager last season because of how good it was. And I know it wasn't pretty. A lot of Celtic fans were complaining, "Oh, sitting behind the ball," or all this. But at the end of the day, as we mentioned, it's about winning football matches, and that's what Aberdeen done on the day, obviously, for the penalties, and hopefully they can do the same. Obviously, penalties won't be in play, but a draw would be an excellent result to start their campaign, although it will be very difficult.
okay, I want a quick fire prediction. 1, 2, 3, go.
Celtic 2, Braga 1, Sturmgratz 2, Rangers 1, and Aberdeen 0, Shakhtar 3.
Okay,
So not a very good week for the Scottish clubs. Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna go with 2-0 to Celtic, 2-0 to Rangers, and 6-0 to Shakhtar Donetsk. But we're running out of time, so I'll just do my quick outro. Thank you to everyone for watching and listening. Go check out the Spotify, go check out the YouTube if you're listening on vice versa. Check out the Twitter at Dugout 2024 and go check out the TikTok. Thank you and goodbye.